Hello, everyone. Welcome to 2D Board Gamers. My name is Dave,
And I'm Dirk.
and today we're going to do an X-23 hero review.
Yep.
So,
Down there.
yep, I don't know what he's doing. Um,
Down there. Nope. There. There.
all right. So, first, we're going to go over X-23's kit, and then we'll talk about some cards that we feel we should add to X-23 specific.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to do an exhaustive list. We probably won't do as an exhaustive of a list if we've done with some of the other characters, just because we want to try to kind of be a little bit more succinct about it. But
Yeah,
we got a couple of ideas that we thought would work really well with her.
yeah.
So.
Some of our hero review videos are a little long, so I'm going to try to make them a little shorter. Okay. So first of all, the alter ego, we got Laura Kinney here. She's got a 6 recovery.
Shink.
Yeah, she's got the Shink ability. Set up. Put X-23 claws into play. Action. Shuffle either the Honey Badger ally or the Sisterly Bond event from your discard pile into your deck. Draw 1 card. Limit once per round.
Okay.
And then on the hero
All right.
side.
So on the hero side, she is a 2 thwart, 1 attack, 2 defense. She's got 5 hand size, 10 hit points. But she is X-Force, and she has the living weapon action, which is, I guess, response is more like it. But after she takes any amount of damage, you can ready her, and you can. This is limited to once per phase, but from any source, when she takes a point of damage, she can be readied. And and that is per phase, not per round. So you can do it in each the hero and the villain phase.
All right. And then, yeah, so we got our claws, which is a permanent. Hero action. Exhaust X-23 claws and take 2 damage. X-23 gets +2 attack until the end of the round.
So see, using those claws there, that would trigger her living weapon ability. Now we've got one of my favorite cards in her kit already is Honey Badger. Honey Badger is a 2-cost ally. She's the signature ally. She's got 1 thwart, 1 attack. Now, if you notice, she is an X-Men and X-23 is X-Force. So that'll come into play on some of our card selections in a little bit. But as a hero response, after Honey Badger takes any amount of damage, then you can ready X-23. So X-23 damage or readies if she takes damage, or if Honey Badger. And if you notice, Honey Badgers is not limited to how many times per round or per phase.
All right. Then we have 2 copies of Animal Instinct. It's a skill hero interrupt. When X-23 makes a basic thwart, she gets +X thwart for this thwart, where X is equal to her attack. Now you notice her basic attack is 1, but we already saw on the claws that she gets +2 attack, so that could thwart for 5.
Yep.
And could go higher.
2 copies of that.
Okay.
All right, next we've got 2 copies of
3.
3 copies of Claw Mastery, which is a 1-cost event. It's a skill, and you are limited to this once per round as your maximum. But as a hero action, until the end of the round, X-23 gets +2 attack, and her attacks gain overkill if Honey Badger's in play. So with this, you can already kind of see a little bit. The reason I was saying I love Honey Badger and Honey Badger is important to her kit is because she gets a lot of bonuses and extra benefit while Honey Badger's in place. So you do want to try to keep Honey Badger around as much as possible.
All right. Then we have 2 copies of Regenerative Longevity. It's a superpower. Action. Heal a total of 4 damage from your identity and Honey Badger.
And I love that. So you can split it up. You can do it all for one character, whatever, either way you want to go. But yeah, so that definitely comes into play for you. Then you got 1 copy of Sisterly Bond. It's a 0-cost event. It is a condition, but as a hero interrupt, when Honey Badger thwarts and attacks or attacks, you add X-23's matching thwart or matching power to Honey Badger's power for that use. So you can actually combine their both. We've seen that some with some of the teams, but this is actually built into a hero now that can do that.
Okay. Then we have a 2-cost support, Sisterhood. It's a condition. Action. Exhaust Sisterhood and discard an X-23 card from your hand. Search your deck and discard pile for Honey Badger and add her to your hand.
That's it. She's important, so you want to try to get it back.
Right. And it's a support. So whenever you don't have Honey Badger, you can search for her.
Yeah, and I love the fact that with this, you get to search your deck and discard pile. So they realize just how important she is. All right, so now we've got a 1-cost upgrade, the Adamantium Lacing. So this gives you 2 hit points, and X-23 gains Retaliate, and her basic attacks gain Piercing. So now she can deal with the toughness characters that are out there when she has that.
All right. Then this is her resource generator. It's a one cost upgrade, Grim Resolve. Exhaust this card and take 1 damage to generate a wild resource. And taking the damage, of course, will get to ready her. Um,
Again,
so
once per round. You are limited to once per round, so you can choose whether or not to use the claws to do it or the Grim Resolve. If
yeah,
if you only need to do that once.
right. But yeah, so this is a way where you can take 1 damage instead of 2 damage from the claws. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Right. And then we've got pain tolerance here. So this is a 2 cost upgrade. So this is one that there's a really good one here. But as a response, it's a superpower. After you play an X23 card, including this one, you heal 1 damage from your identity. So if you can actually play, if you can get the resources together and have the cards in hand, play 2 or 3 different cards, X23 cards in this turn, you'll get 3 heal from this. So that's a good thing to do there. And so that actually enables you to use the regenerative longevity that we looked at earlier to focus a little bit more on keeping Honey Badger around.
All right. Then the last 2 cards in her kit is 2 copies of Puncture Wound. It's a condition attached to an enemy that X23 or Honey Badger attack this turn. Attached enemy gets -1 attack. After the player phase begins, discard this card and deal 3 damage to the attached enemy.
So yeah, so the enemy will stick around throughout the entire enemy phase, but as soon as the player phase starts, boom, you get to nail him with 3 points of damage.
Right. And like if they gain a tough or something during the villain phase, well, that knocks the tough off.
Yep.
All right. And now, so what we've been starting to do with the X-Force ones is go over the obligations of the Nemesis
Yeah,
because
because
they're really tied into this.
they are.
So first of all, we got
So we've got self-isolation here, which is her obligation. You give it to the Laura Kitty player, and then whenever this comes out, she has to search her hand, deck, and discard pile and play area. So basically anywhere, and you find Honey Badger, and then you place Honey Badger face down under the obligation. And then if you can't, then you discard this and deal yourself 1 face down a counter card. Now, pretty much that covers almost all of your play areas. If it's in the victory display for some reason, you're probably already in trouble because you don't want to lose Honey Badger, but then you would get the face down a counter card. But as a response, after you make a basic recovery, you can discard this obligation and Honey Badger. So, this one definitely, it takes away one of your more important cards from your kit
but
and from anywhere.
like a card like Hydra Prison,
Yeah.
she would be, you couldn't grab her. So
Yeah, that is true.
that would be an example of an area that you couldn't take it.
That is true.
Lady Deathstrike. This is her nemesis. Scheme 2, attack 2, 5 hit points. She's an elite reaver. When defeated, the player who defeated this minion discards the top card of the encounter deck and takes 1 indirect damage for each boost icon, the triangles, on that card.
So yeah, that's one that whenever you defeat her, that could really hurt you. So you gotta kind of hopefully you know your villain deck or your encounter deck enough that kind of whether or not you've got any 4s out there or some of the bigger ones that if those hit you at the wrong time, though, you could really be hurt. So here we've got the obligations or the Nemesis side scheme. That's in the name of vengeance. So each enemy gains retaliate 1. So that means any enemy that already has retaliate 1 or even 2 gets an additional retaliate. And this costs 6. So this one was one I did actually kind of find it a little bit interesting that it's not a per player, it's just a straight 6. So in higher player counts, this one actually gets a little bit easier to get rid of.
Yep. All right. And then we've got Cyber Mods. It's an attachment that goes on Lady Deathstrike. Attach Lady Deathstrike. If you cannot discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until a minion is discarded, put that minion into play, engage with you, and attach this card to it. When attached minion would be discarded, shuffle it into the encounter deck instead.
So I do kind of like the way they've got the attachments. That a lot of the attachments lately have gone to where, well, they'll go on a specific minion, but if that one's not there, it goes on the villain instead. I do like the fact that this one kind of, to change it up a little bit, you instead you will mill for another minion if she's not in play, and that minion gets it instead. So I did kind of like that. I thought that was a pretty.
The other
nice
option
change.
would be like Surge or something, but yeah.
Yeah, but Surge, it doesn't quite have as much of a feel of desperation to it. So
right.
All right, so now we've got the critical wound. So it is a condition, it's an attachment as well. And you attach this one to your own identity when it comes up. But as a forced interrupt, when your turn ends, you discard this card and you take 4 damage.
Yep.
So yeah, if this one pops up, you're probably going to be spending the turn healing if you're down a little bit.
All right. And then the treachery is hack and slash. Discard 1 random card from your hand and take damage equal to the number of printed resources on it.
I hate random
That.
discard.
And just when you thought you can get rid of that, no, the boost is discard 1 random card from your hand and take damage equal to the number of printed resources on it.
So either way, it's getting you.
Yeah, Dirk's losing a random card.
Whether it hacks or slashes, it's getting you.
Yeah. Okay. Then we've got
we got a couple of ideas.
Each of
us kind of came up with a couple.
Yeah. So these are some basic cards that I think we should add. You could add to her deck. You know, you can use most of these in pretty much any aspect, not necessarily all of them. First of all, you'd want some first aid because you want to keep Honey Badger around.
Yes.
So it's a 1-cost event. Heal 2 damage from a character.
And I don't use that in a lot of builds, but I have noticed that I do actually like to use the first aid in this specifically for Honey Badger to keep her around.
Yeah.
Because of how important she is, at least to me in my builds with her.
Yeah. I mean, in protection, you could swap it with Med Team, but, first aid's cheaper.
Yeah.
Then we got Mutant Education. Play only if your identity has a mutant trait, so you have to be alter ego to play it. Choose up to 2 identity-specific cards in your discard pile and shuffle them into your deck. If expansion is in play, draw a card. So this is her cards are pretty good, and so this is a way to get some X-23 cards back that were discarded, especially if Honey Badger is one that gets discarded, and it's another way to get her back. Then we have X-Men Instruction. Play only if your identity has a mutant trait. Choose up to 2 X-Men allies in your discard pile and shuffle them into your deck. If X-Mansion is in play, draw a card. Now, that's going to come relevant here in a second because I think this came in the latest pack that we have, the Magneto pack, Children of the Atom. So 1-cost support, play under any player's control, max 1 per player. Each X Factor, X Force, and X-Men character you control gains the X Factor, X Force, and X-Men trait. Now, this is really good because Honey Badger is an X-Men and you're X Force. So this would allow like team building to kick in. Before, if I wanted to keep Honey Badger around, I wanted it to play or cheaper, I would have to before I would make her maybe an honorary X-Force or something to try to keep her equal for cards that say, exhaust X-Force.
And this one actually segues.
Get to yours.
Oh, okay. I was going to do it. Okay, we'll do mine a little bit then.
Right. So we got iPack here. Dirk hates this card.
Yeah.
It's a 1-cost support. Play only if your identity has the X-Force trait. Exhaust iPack and deal 1 face down encounter card to a player. Then player draws 2 cards.
Right.
And since she's X-Force, you can play it.
See, that one is worth putting an honorary X-Force into your deck so that you can actually do that when you're an alter ego as well.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I like that card that much.
Moira McTaggart, play only if your identity has a mutant trait. After a mutant alter ego changes to hero form, exhaust Moira McTaggart. That player draws it.
Yeah, she's been a fairly common card in our X-Men and X-Force builds.
And then with Children of the Atom now, all your X-Force and X-Men allies have both. So now you can get a 1-cost cheaper, 2-cost support, exhaust team building after play a card from your hand that shares a trait with your hero, reducing the resource cost by 1. So now X-23 is X-Men, so Honey Badger would cost you only 1 instead of 2. And since you're now X-Men, you could play the X-Jet. Exhaust the X-Jet and generate a wild resource for a player whose identity has the X-Men trait.
Remember, you do have to become an X-Men first before you can use this, but it's a very good strategy, especially with that Children of the Atom.
Yeah, so Children of the Atom would have to come out first before this. You could play that card.
There's other ways to cheat it out, but that's the easiest one, I guess.
And now Utopia. Now, you don't have to be Children of the Atom for Utopia to play Honey Badger, but this will turn all your allies eligible, assuming you stick with X Factor X-Men. 2-cost support. If each of your allies has the X-Men trait, increase your ally limit by 1. After an X-Men ally enters play, exhaust Utopia, ready an X-Men character. So you can ready yourself now with Children of the Atom, which makes X-Mansion stronger. 2-cost support, exhaust X-Mansion, heal 1 damage from a mutant or X-Men character. Any players whose alter ego has a mutant trait may trigger this ability. And now I don't Voltron Honey Badger, but I do kind of beef her up a little bit because when I can, and before I had to, you know, well, this is a card that you could use for any aspect. So it's a 1-cost upgrade, sidearm, attached to an ally, max 1 per ally. Attach ally gets +1 fight, and its attacks gain range. So it's a nice way to avoid retaliate, because Honey Badger, you don't want to take retaliate because you want to keep her around, and she's dishing out some more damage. And then isn't there you get to add Honey Badger's stats to one of her cards or something?
So that is the let's see, that is
Sisterly Bond.
Sisterly Bond, yeah.
Yeah, so this would work with Sisterly Bond because now Honey Badger's got a 2 attack instead of 1.
Yep.
All right, so that was some basic cards that I would add.
And so now, and what I love here about the X-Mansion that Dave mentioned here is it's a heal damage to an X-Men or a mutant character. So this is a good way that when you're in alter ego, you can heal Honey Badger.
Yeah.
So that to help keep her around. So that's why I really like this card with her.
And with Children of the Atom, then you get a 1-cost discount to play it from team building as well.
All right. So some of what I came up with, of course, again, playing into that whole the X-Men X-Force thing here.
Yeah. So one thing we are not going to do that we've done in other reviews is pretty much any of the X-Men or X-Force allies would be useful, especially with Children of the Atom.
Yeah, if you're using Children of the Atom
So yeah, we're not gonna go through all the X-Men and X-Force allies, but this card would assume that you're using X-Men
Yeah, so I mean, basically by default, even if you don't have Children of the Atom, this can still work because you exhaust an X-Force and an X-Men character. Well, X-23 is X-Force, Honey Badger is an X-23. So this does work without Children of the Atom, although Children of the Atom will definitively increase your chances of it working more often. But it's still a good one because you exhaust both characters and you can defeat a non-elite enemy. So if you've got one that's a little pesky that you're having trouble getting rid of, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to deal damage to it. So it can get through toughness. It can deal with that. It can deal with other when defeated abilities. Because I mean, it just defeats them flat out. You don't have to.
Well, the when defeated would trigger.
It will still trigger, but yeah. So
because it's not discarded, so
right,
it's defeated. So the when defeated power would still trigger, but you don't have to, knock all the hit points out.
Right. Also, another card that I looked at here that is Blood Rage. Blood Rage is also a really good one with X-23 because it basically her living weapon power, which is when she takes the damage, she can ready herself one time. This is basically a second use of that in a turn. It is an upgrade, so it stays out, but basically after you do have to defeat an enemy in particular for this one with a basic attack, but you defeat that enemy, you can take a point of damage, and in this one it draws a card. There was one I thought,
yeah, that doesn't ready you.
Oh, I think I had a different one, but yeah, this one draws a card. So, but it doesn't duplicate that ability, but it's a very similar ability. Kind of works off of the same concept.
Your kit.
Yeah, and you can also just
still ready
take that damage to ready and
then draw a card as well.
Okay, and then now again playing back into this Animal Instinct card, which was the big one that for a couple of cards that I've got here is if you can increase her attack. Because of this card, it will in turn also increase her thwart because you add the thwart to the attack. So a couple of ways you can do that. One of the common ways you can do that, and it's been around for a long time, is combat training, of course. Gives you +1 attack right off the bat. So in other words, a combat training in her kit doubles as a, what's the justice one called?
Heroic Intuition.
Heroic Intuition. Just doubles as Heroic Intuition. But you've also got cards here like Smash the Problem. Now, Smash the Problem, you exhaust your hero, you remove threat from the scheme equal to your hero's attack. So if you've got a few cards like the combat training, her what? No, not the puncture wound. The
claws.
The claws. Yeah, you use the claws and you do a few different things to increase her attack, and you could turn around and actually thwart for substantially more in a turn. So she can kind of cover justice a little bit here in a pinch if you need it. So that's a good way, especially if you're playing solo, to deal with justice with her. And then kind of the other concept that I went, this one relies really heavily upon honey badger. So I mean, you do want to make sure. I mean, you are running a risk using this because of, again, the self isolation that's going to take away honey badger. So anything you put on her, of course, any kind of upgrades or attachments are going to go away. So there is a risk, but she is one of the first cards that I actually really I leaned into the sidekick. Now I paid my price for it because, of course, self isolation came out on me, I think, 3 different times in that game. It was horrible, horrible, horrible. I hated it, but it's still not going to deter me from using Sidekick in her deck because I think it's a good leadership card for her because it gives the attached ally. So you get Honey Badger an additional 2 because it does have to be your signature ally. But then after you make a basic recovery, you also heal 2 damage to the ally, so it helps to heal her as well to keep her around. You can do additional things like you can throw an advanced suit on her, which that one is you can discard a card after you defeat a minion or a side scheme. You can discard a card to heal 1 damage to the attached ally for each resource on that card. So if you've got double resources, you can actually heal her 2 by discarding that if you don't need it for something else. But it's an additional way to keep Honey Badger around for a little longer because, like I said, she's that important to the kit, in my opinion. You get cards like Side by Side here. Of course, if you're playing a sidekick, you're ready your sidekick, and you can choose to either heal a damage to both characters, or each character can increase their thwart and attack until the end of the turn. Me personally, I'm almost always going to use the heal unless it happens to come out, and I do, and I am full with both of them. But I kind of lean a little bit more because I don't want Honey Badger to go away. I lean a little bit more into just holding the card for a turn or 2 if I need to. And then the last one I've got here is just it's the inspired upgrade. So if you're going to try to keep her around, you can do a little bit of a mini Voltron. I'm not going to dedicate too many cards to it, but this increases her attack and her thwart for Honey Badger a little bit more there. You're limited to once per ally, but
And it helps with sisterhood as well.
Yep, it does. So like I said, I mean, I kind of played into it. I normally, anybody who's watched the channel a lot knows that I don't play real heavily into the ally aspect a lot. Honey Badger is one that definitely changed my my thought process on that. Her and I bring her out and I try to keep her around. I like her that much. So
Yeah, so that was X23 and some cards that we would add to her deck or that we think are good deck concepts.
X23 and Honey Badger.
Yeah, yeah. So so it's the Honey Badger deck co-starring X23.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what it feels like sometimes.
All right. Well, thank you for watching, everyone. Please like and subscribe.